So whenever you talk about maybe them not getting a quarterback or maybe something about C.J. Stroud, then we see Schefter saying, hey, there's a chance the Texans don't take a quarterback. We start piecing 2 and 2 together that maybe the Texans aren't as high on C.J. Stroud as we can imagine that they are, that we thought they were. And ever since you kind of talked about that, there's been a plethora of stories that have come out, not too many, but it seems like a narrative trying to be built about C.J. Stroud maybe not being the best NFL quarterback going forward when that wasn't what we had heard all the way up until like a week and a half ago. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts? And you're the one that told us this is lying season. Are you just a part of the bullshit to potentially get C.J. Stroud to a team?
Whoa.
No, I don't think I am, though, who knows, but I watched the tape and I think, look, when you're in a situation where you are at Houston, I think it's pretty clear when you watch the tape, Bryce Young was the best quarterback in this draft. We can debate other things, but Bryce Young was ready to play. And I think the Carolina situation where they were debating back and forth, I think that was a little bit of liar's poker. I think they were going to take Bryce Young all along. They did their homework, and I believe that'll be the pick. I think Stroud's about comfortability. He plays in an offense where he looks to the sideline to call plays. And it's a number system, so it's not as familiar. He doesn't call the play. He doesn't get it into. Levis at Kentucky did. Richardson, the same thing. So a lot of this is teams learn about the players as they're coming through their facility. Stroud's I'm not saying he's a bad player. What I'm saying about Houston, and I've said about Houston, is they're going to take the best player. I don't think they're as quarterback hungry as everybody wants them to be. They need a quarterback. There's no denying it. But they have 2 number ones next year, and DeMeco Ryans is in this for the long haul. Why not take the best player? Why take a risk?
Got it. So A.J. Hawk joins us again. Obviously, he is the Ohio champion. Great to see you, A.J.
Yeah.
He was just talking about Houston. He believes that Houston's going to take the best player available, especially in DeMeco's first year. He is a defensive guy. Will Anderson is the best player available there. Do you think there's any chance now, if they're not going to take a quarterback, if the world knows that, their pick is very expensive right now? Do you think they think about moving out there? Or 3 overall all of a sudden becomes like almost a free-for-all for anybody that needs a quarterback? Or do you think that we're not at that level with the talent that C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, or Hendon Hooker have?
All right, let me start on the second part. I think every quarterback other than Young has something wrong with them. And when I say something wrong with them, I don't mean socially. I mean in terms of their game, what they lack, what they need to do, what they must improve on. Look, today's a great day for any player because Jalen Hurts proved that if you work on your weaknesses and you work diligently and you become someone who's dedicated, then you can improve. And all these quarterbacks are going to have to improve. They all have something wrong with them, right? And the teams are looking at that, and they're saying, which one will work the hardest to improve? The second best player in this draft, and I want to be really clear here, the second best player in this draft is Jalen Carter. Now, Jalen Carter is dominant at whatever he does. Wherever he goes, he's the second best. It's not Will Anderson, it's Carter. However, Carter's got some issues, the weight gain, the seriousness of the problem that happened on the campus of the University of Georgia, his off-the-field investigation into that situation, the weight gain, all those things. But Carter is, just purely watching football players play football, the second best defensive player. And I believe Houston will take the best defensive front 7 guy. Everybody says, why not take a risk on the quarterback? Look, if you're Seattle, Detroit, and you're picking up this high, you better take the best player, especially on defense. And I'll give you a Walshism. As great of a coach as Bill Walsh was, and as great as he was as an offensive mind, he believed this. You need to draft the best 11 players for defense because you can't hide a defensive player. And I think that's what's going to run this draft.
Hasn't been really chatted about much. Everything's been about the top 4. Yeah. Who's going to go at the quarterback position? Seems like defense is going to be top-heavy in Lumbo's mind. What do you got, AJ? Former number 5 overall pick, Mike linebacker.
If C.J. Stroud does not go in the top 2 picks, how far do you think he could fall and where could he go?
That's the one I'm having a hard time on where it could go. Again, it's hard to predict. Everybody, it's easy to say to the people that call you on the phone, we're going to take a quarterback because people think you need a quarterback. So it's not really a lie, but you're fibbing. And I think there's a lot of fibbing going on. I'm not sure where he goes. I'm not sure where he fits. I do think the Colts will pick a quarterback at 4. I love Jim Irsay's tweet. He basically laid it out. We can do anything. But I think at the end of the day, the Colts are sitting there saying, whoever we take at 4 at quarterback is going to have some issues. And I think we're going to take the one that has the least amount. I think they would take Levis over anybody else, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know. I think it really comes down to Steichen and Ballard deciding which one has the least amount of risk that they could take and they put in their locker room. Could he go at 4? I think teams are now starting to accept that Stroud's not going 2, and I think more work's being done.
Okay, so your general manager, Chris Ballard. We're sitting at 4. C.J. Stroud's available. Will Levis is available. Anthony Richardson is available. Hendon Hooker is available. Michael Lombardi, general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, is taking.
I would, based on tape, I would take Stroud. But here's what I would answer your question, Pat.
All right.
If I were the GM of the Colts, I would ask Mr. Irsay if I could borrow one of his planes, and I would fly down to see Lamar Jackson. And I would show Lamar Jackson this Jalen Hurts contract and say, Lamar, this is not guaranteed. We've seen 3 contracts since Watson's deal that have not been fully guaranteed. I want to make you an Indianapolis Colt. I put Lamar Jackson on this team with the Colts are, all of a sudden I'm relevant. If I were in Washington and I put Lamar Jackson on that team, I'm relevant. I think this contract for Hurts opens the door up to have a conversation with Lamar about not everything's going to have to be guaranteed, buttoned up. And if I were Chris Ballard, I would be on that airplane. Here's the thing that's interesting. Everybody says for the last 2 months, you can't pay a quarterback and go to the Super Bowl. Well, the Eagles just paid Hurts a lot of money.
Chiefs.
They're planning on going to the Super Bowl. So why wouldn't I try to get the best quarterback? Why would I take a risk with Stroud or a risk with Levis when I could go get Lamar Jackson or at least try to get Lamar Jackson? You say, well, you got to give up 2 number ones. No, I don't. I give up 1 number 1 because I'm going to pick somebody at 4 anyway. I'm picking a better player at 4 with Lamar than I would be drafting any one of those guys.
So it's next year's 1 that technically you'd be giving up. But if we win, who gives a fuck? That 1's going to be at 30, 31, 32 anyways.
Right. I mean, it's like the Jets are now waiting. The Jets are in the perfect place. They're going to give up. The Packers are going to take a pick somewhere between 25 and 32 for Aaron Rodgers when their 13th pick is sitting there. Like, wouldn't you rather have the Jets are loving this. They want the draft to get over with without getting Rodgers because they get all those picks.
Okay, so you would take C.J. Stroud at 4, but why are we even thinking about that? Give me Lamar Jackson. Let's visit the Jalen Hurts deal. And the Chiefs paid Patrick Mahomes. They obviously just won a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford got paid. They won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Tom Brady got $50 million guaranteed. They won a Super Bowl. You can pay a quarterback. Obviously, you just got to be able to build up around the team. Some GMs have been able to do that. Some GMs have been able to do it and got injuries that have popped up out of nowhere. I mean, the NFL is a wild game, but you got to have a fucking quarterback.
In terms of the draft, it was basically from the national semifinals up through like pro day until maybe like a week ago where everyone, CJ Stroud was a slam dunk. Everyone was talking about how good he was, and then Bryce Young kind of came up a little bit. It was always those guys 1A, 1B. But now it seems like some of like the smoke screens and like people kind of shitting on CJ Stroud is starting to come out. Have you heard all of this stuff in terms of his draft stock where they're saying maybe Houston isn't going to take him? He could, slide down and be like the 3rd or 4th or 5th quarterback taken. Like, is his draft stock actually plummeting right now? Have you heard any of that? Or is that mostly just bullshit, you think?
Okay, so I have heard all of that. That does seem to be the hot rumor now with, and people ask me, like, is it possible the Texans don't take Stroud at 2? Anything is possible, especially, the Texans and Nick Caserio don't always look at things like everyone else. I just don't believe it. Like, I just don't. Like, from my information, the people that I've spoken with, all of that, like, I would be surprised if the Texans do not take their quarterback of the future at number 2. Most people I speak with believe it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and then the others. Small gap, not like a huge gap, but they think it's those 2. So if that's the case, if Bryce Young goes 1, Stroud should go 2. So, like, I hear all of this, and I get calls about it all the time because that's the season we're in right now. I just don't really believe it. And if it happens, I will say, like, yeah, I didn't see it, but I don't see it.
A lot of smoke, though, right? That sounds like a lot of smoke coming out of there. Which is it coming from the Colts? Potentially sitting there at 4. Hey, C.J. Stroud, this guy he's not a good person. You don't want him on your team. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what's been coming out, like not coachable, and then like not sure they're on a quarterback. It's like, what the fuck is going on because we haven't heard any of this stuff before. And then you think back to people that have been a general manager in the NFL, they said it's lying season. Everybody's potentially right now trying to shift the odds in their favor. I'll be fascinated to see what the Texans do. They got a lot of power because let's say the Texans like a quarterback. Maybe it's not C.J. Stroud. Maybe it's another quarterback. With what you just said, how everybody you talked to says Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Then the others, they have another pick, don't they? Don't they have another pick?
12.
They have 12.
Yeah, the Texans.
But
Go ahead.
But it's a risk because let's just say, I don't know, let's say it's Anthony Richardson, right? This is just a hypothetical. This is not me reporting. Just saying, let's say it's Anthony Richardson.
But you have information that nobody else has. So every time you give your punditry, we have to go, this guy knows something. So just know that that's the road you're in, and I assume you know that.
Got it. I do.
All right.
Let's say the Texans take Will Anderson 2 and pass on a quarterback, right? At that point, it's all up for grabs because they can't control everything else that happens. They could try to trade up to 3 and take a quarterback then, and the Cardinals go, yeah, no, we're just going to trade with someone else. And, they might lose someone they viewed as their franchise quarterback. And, historically, if you like a quarterback, just take him. Everyone lost their minds when Daniel Jones went 6 to the Giants. Reality is they thought that was going to be their franchise guy.
Well,
it's earlier than people, just take it.
Well.
So, if you're the Texans, don't risk losing your quarterback.
Well, now you pay Daniel Jones. Now you pay Daniel Jones. Saquon's not happy.
That's right.
Sexy Dexy's not happy.
Yep.
So I guess Daniel Jones, good call at 6. He's had success. That's not his fault or the Giants' fault. And this last year was certainly his best year. I'm happy for him getting it all figured out. But there's been a lot of times where people have drafted a quarterback that's been theirs and they suck.
Yeah.
So it's history says that numbers tell us a lot of these guys are going to suck. A lot of these guys aren't going to be guys, even though we're people are going to trade up to 3, we assume, right? Especially with what the Texans are talking about. Let's say the Texans go with a defender.
Okay.
That one guy,
Tyree Wilson,
or Will, whoever.
Sure.
Everybody's kind of talking about whoever it is. Then all of a sudden, that Cardinals pick, right, is
hot. Come on.
Yeah.
very big.
Yeah.
Hotter.
Very, very big. If a quarterback's sitting there and C.J. Stroud, that's why it's such a big deal with the C.J. Stroud news. It's being leaked by everybody.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
Then the report of they might not take a quarterback because it could be the Cardinals cooking.
Yeah.
Because Cardinals, all of a sudden, their pick becomes very valuable if that stuff's true. And then you look at them underneath, and I'm not saying Chris Ballard would do this, and Jim Irsay's already tweeted, we might, brother. Or we might, brother. Or maybe, brother. Or not. So,
You be the judge.
So that's what Jim's saying.
Yeah.
So maybe Jim is playing a little game of chess or poker behind the scenes. Maybe Chris Ballard's doing that. Maybe the Cardinals are doing that. We just have to remember that is possible here in the middle of draft time. And C.J. Stroud just has to sit on the other end of it, I guess, and just be like, that's not true.
Yep.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Hold up. How'd this start happening? What's this all about?
So bad.
It is. It's the world we're in, I guess. I don't want to say it's disgusting, but it's kind of
Pretty
disgusting.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Connor?
Well, you just think about D'Amico Ryans too. He comes from San Fran, where they kind of view the QB differently, right? And who's San Fran's best player? And one of Nick Bosa, who they took in the top 3 in San Fran. So maybe they do go with the premier edge guy that was kind of the cornerstone of the Niners defense, and trying to start it that way with Will Anderson.
Peter King had an article this morning where he said it's going to be tough for the Texans to explain to their fans if they didn't take quarterback last year and they don't take quarterback at 2 this year if it ends up not working out well. But it is D'Amico's first year, so he's got some time. Yeah. Texans fans have to remember that. Just because you guys have sucked for a bit, that doesn't mean that D'Amico's not going to be able to get some time here in the development of what they got going.
The last 2 head coaches only had a year, so.
Yeah, I guess you got 1 year. Casario said that he's not going anywhere, which is a big deal.